Hi everyone. Good evening to all our audience and a very warm welcome to each one of you to a very special edition of Illuminate by Meritto webinar series. I am Naman, Associate Director, Partner Success at Meritto. For the newer audience who have tuned in first time, Meritto, a de facto choice for all educational organizations, is the operating system of transforming student recruitments and enrollments worldwide, trusted by over 1,000 educational organizations, from edtech companies to higher education organizations. Meritto streamlines processes for sales, marketing, admissions, finance, and operations team. With its powerful yet user-friendly solutions, Meritto empowers 1 billion student engagements annually, processing 100 million inquiries and managing 5 million applications on an average. Illuminate by Meritto is a series of live webinar where we bring you the latest insights, best practices, and technology on everything about student recruitment and enrollments. We host experts from the education fraternity offering unparalleled experience in the education landscape. And today is definitely a special one with the kind of guests we have on our panel today. So, to all our audience today, be prepared to be inspired, be prepared to be empowered by the success stories of education organizations who have been there, done that, and today are here with us to share their experience and success stories. As of today, we will delve deep into what it takes to build and sustain a top ranked university in Malaysia, focusing on the essential elements of technology, processes, people, and student outcomes. It is my privilege today to introduce you with our esteemed panelists, Dr. Murli Raman, Deputy Vice Chancellor from Asia Pacific University. Dr. Murli Raman is a distinguished academic leader with an extensive background in higher education, boasting over 25 years of experience. He has held key leadership positions in a prestigious institutions and is renowned for his strong background in research and innovation. A very warm welcome, Dr. Murli Raman.
Thank you, Naman.
So we also have with us on panel Ms. Stella Lau, Managing Director, SEGi University, Malaysia. Ms. Stella Lau, a visionary leader in the education sector, has over 25 years of experience in various roles across the industry. Her expertise spans strategic planning, curriculum development, and student engagement, making her a sort of authority in the field. A very warm welcome, Ms. Stella.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much, ma'am. Warm welcome once again. Well, I am excited and eager to learn from vast experience and knowledge of all our panelists today. I would request our audience to please keep raising your question. Any thought, any question you have, feel free to put it in the chat. I'll try to pick them and take up with our panelists. Well, Dr. Murli Raman, Ms. Stella, right? Amazing. It's a privilege for me, right, to connect with you. And I was going to the background. I was deeply impressed with the kind of journey you have had, how you had initiated the journey of the university, Asia Pacific University, and at SEGi University. So I'm sure our audience would have a lot of key takeaways today and a good learning opportunity for all of us from your experience and your insights. To start it off, I don't want to waste much of a time. I am eager and my I would directly like to shoot off with a question, direct question that comes off to my mind with to you, Dr. Murli. So basically, if you look at right, I was going through the QS World University rankings. So Asia Pacific University is ranked in the top 2.2% of the universities in the world. So would you like to share with our audience largely about more about Asia Pacific University and how it has managed to secure that position? Which this university, which started off in 1993, how that journey has been, and how you were able to achieve that position today.
Thank you for the question, Naman. As a university, I was just speaking to some distinguished guests that we received this morning, and I was telling them as a university, we are only becoming a teenager right now. So as a formal university is only 2012. So we just finished 12 years of university status, but the Asia Pacific Institute of Technology, or APIT, was formed in 1993, as you correctly pointed out. And at the time, that vibrated very well with the whole nation of moving Malaysia towards an information and knowledge-based economy. So there was a gap in terms of fulfilling the ICT sector in terms of talent. So I think the vision and the philosophy of our founding father and current CEO, Dato' Pramjit Singh, has always been and will continue to ensure that we play a pivotal role in providing Malaysian ecosystem for the ICT and beyond with the relevant talent. And so far, we've graduated from 1993 to now close to 50,000 graduates. And as a university, of course, the landscape changes a bit more. As a university, you have to do beyond just teaching and learning, as you know. It has to do a lot with making sure that we are international, making sure that we offer curriculum that is highly innovative and consistent with market demand and industry requirements. And also, of course, one cannot run away from talking about research in that sense, right? So in terms of ranking, and I think we've done reasonably well. Last year was the first time we participated in the QS World Ranking. And we were happy, in fact, quite pleasantly surprised to be in the 600, 650 sort of zone. And I think we improved slightly this year as well. How do we do that? I think it's sheer hard work. Stella would definitely agree. It's not easy to run an institution. And especially if you look at the QS ranking, there are a couple of criteria, Naman, that you've got to hit. Yeah, one of it is, are you reputable from an academic perspective? Are you reputable from an employer perspective? And now recently, they are looking at things like citation, looking at almost 25% is devoted towards research in terms of that. So you got to be on the ball with the various criteria. And how we mark a stamp and how we make a name for ourselves is to dive deeper into each one of these criteria and ask ourselves, what are the gaps? What are we doing well? What are we excelling with? And what are the gaps and how are we going to fill it? And we make every effort possible to ensure that we try and address some of these gaps. But putting ranking aside, the philosophy has always been to ensure that we take care of students and when we say we take care of students, we want to convert them from high school leavers into professionals and into professionals that are readily employable by the market. Yeah, so they are. And beyond the ranking, there's two statistics that we are very proud about. One is our employability track record, which is 100%. And that's from a tracer study. We don't say this, it's by the Ministry of Higher Education. They've been reporting on a year-on-year basis that we have 100% employability track record. And secondly, the salaries that our graduate command for niche areas such as cybersecurity and the ICT sector in general is above average salary of a fresh graduate. So we don't want to lose sight and focus on this philosophy. Yeah. So ranking, we are there. Yes, it's important. Would we be there? Yes, we'll be there. But the focus and the priority is always to ensure that we have people who are highly employable, because when they are highly employable, it means their family have food to eat on the table, right? So I think that's very important to us.
So basically, what you mentioned also, Dr. Murli, so we've seen a trend also. A lot of universities tend to drive or tend to move towards these rankings. So largely, it's not so what if I have to put it right. This is what I'm able to grasp from your insights. So all these rankings and all that is an output base, right? This is an output of what
I wouldn't. I mean,
or maybe what sort of initiatives as a university we have taken. Largely, what you mentioned, right? You focus on building strong fundamentals. That is
correct.
student experience,
Right.
student employability factor, which eventually all of this gradually will lead to all these rankings will come as an output of all these initiatives.
Yeah, I think fundamentally you're right, Naman. If you do things that's good, you do things well as an institution, the name and fame will naturally come. What the ranking does is it allows us to reflect on the criteria and ask ourselves fundamental questions. Are we there in terms of some of these criteria? These are good indicators, right, for us to look at. But my point is also it should not be all and end all in this ranking dimensions, because you should never lose focus as an institution. We're talking about quality and top ranked institution. We should never lose focus on the final outcome, which is students' employability and students, are they happy with what we are delivering as an institution? I think that is so important to us. And if we continuously do that well, naturally things like the reputation will increase both internally and externally to Malaysia. Yeah.
Absolutely. So very well pointed out. So I would like to maybe reach out to you, Miss Stella. If we look at the journey of SEGi University, right, it goes way long back, right? In 1977, if I'm not wrong, maybe
Yes,
at that time it
77.
was known as Systematic College back then, right? And how today it has evolved to one of the largest leading universities there in Malaysia, and a lot more than that. So, if you look at this journey, right, largely SEGi University today has distinguished itself as a leader in research and education in Malaysia, known for its commitment to sustainability and research excellence. So, what has driven SEGi to achieve such a prominent status in this academic community?
Well, like Dr. Murali, SEGi has also been in this education sector for 47 years now, since 1977. Um, but that higher education space that we are in since then has really evolved and changed so much. Today we have one university, five colleges, five academic colleges, one TVET college, three international schools. And we looking to expand? Maybe. But what we really want, and I think it resonates very well with what Dr. Murali said, the fundamentals need to be there. If you're talking about sustainable growth in any sense, in any businesses, in any industries, we're really talking about organic, authentic fundamentals. So what drives the business in the long run? Education, yes, it is a business, especially for us because we are private institutions, and we do not have the luxury of a lot of government funding and a lot of government-sponsored students. We do get some, but it's not a lot. What we really need to strive is remaining relevant to our students and to the employers who will want to employ our graduates. We have about 100,000, more than 100,000 alumni over these years. And we have produced students from disciplines of like medicine and dentistry and pharmacy, down to business and creative arts and music. So it's a very diverse portfolio. But with each of these portfolios, with each of these schools, what remains the DNA for us is our tagline, the best in you made possible. So we take students for all kinds of backgrounds, all kinds of academic entry requirements, right, at different levels. And we teach them not only cognitive skills or knowledge, but we also want to teach them who they might be. So what they will be and who they will be. So that's character, and that's all the employability factor that Dr. Murali speak about, because employers are not just looking at pure knowledge. And we know that because we interview people and we hire them, we look at a lot of other things that they bring together. Do they have a growth mindset? Are they positive? Or are they easily defeated? Do they have grit? Do they have all the other things that we want? Teamwork, leadership. So education is a very complex business. We not only give them knowledge and skills, we have to do all the other things. And we introduce stress and we introduce pressure so that when they got to the real world, that's not an issue. In a nutshell, did I answer your question?
Absolutely. That's absolutely bang on. So, if another question that comes to mind is, so Dr. Murli, right, when we are not talking about, right, that journey, focusing on strong fundamentals, right, how maybe difficult it gets, right, as a university, right, considering the competitive landscape, does it is it important to focus on creating a particular niche, say building an larger niche around research, or focusing on any one area and I build a niche around that? So is that the approach, or as a university, how probably we go around that, sir? Yeah,
It's a
Dr.
great question. I think that pretty much depends on what's the overall vision and strategy of any institution. Right? So, for example, SEGi, if I may have its own strategy in terms of Do we offer broad-based programs? Are we focusing on an all-encompassing, faculty versus APU probably getting a bit more deeper into the computing and technology domain? So I guess it's the call of the institutional leadership. It's also the call of investors where they see that our potential is. But I think we really have to understand that not everyone is an expert in everything, right? So we really got to place our bets to a certain extent in terms of what we are good at and what we excel with. Doesn't mean that we stop there. So I guess for any institution, the safe bet is to pursue a sort of twin strategy, not digital twins, but a twin approach where you're focusing on what your strengths are. So from a branding perspective, if you look at APU, anyone out there in the market familiar with us, they say APU, okay, it's cybersecurity, it's AI, it's cloud. So very seldom you will hear that APU positions itself very highly in terms of, say, another program of psychology, but we are in psychology now. That's where the differentiator comes in. So within psychology, how do we utilize our strengths? So which is why we are positioning ourselves as a leader in cyber psychology. And what is cyber psychology? How we use technology to position people with greater mental well-being and alertness, right? So research into that area, teaching and developing programs in that area is a must. So therefore, while the niche is required, the diversification is a natural outcome of getting into areas that we are not too comfortable with, but using the strength of what we are comfortable with, yeah? So if it's business, can we look at business from, say, a digital business perspective, data analytics perspective? And I think this is not confined to APU's philosophy alone. Most of the organizations or institutions out there, especially in the private sector, you need to keep up with times. There's no program where there's no digital element anymore. Even in healthcare, right? AI in healthcare is becoming so big. AI for product design within the healthcare environment is becoming even more popular. So you have to naturally look at what's happening out there. And our philosophy has always been, don't kill ourselves trying to understand what's going to be in the future. Let's rely on the experts like Gartner, and Gartner hype cycle will tell us 20, 30, 40 years in that growth trajectory where industry is headed, right? And therefore, in that context, we got to ask ourselves, are we ready? If you're not, so what are we going to do about it? What's our game plan to address this gap again? So knowing what's coming 20, 30 years ahead, doing an assessment of where we are now, would position us well into, do we go deeper in the niche area, or do we expand in a diversified mode, leveraging on what our strengths are? So to answer your question, there's no one size fits all. Stella may have a different strategy, we may have a different strategy, but I guess in the end result, being in a private institution, money does matter. I'm sure Stella will agree. You got to earn a sizable revenue on a yearly basis, and that's got to be sustainable over the long term to ensure that everyone's happy, investors, the stakeholders that we serve.
So Ms. Stella, how do you look at it, right, as a probably managing director at SEGi University? Is there a specific dedicated focus, or is it a strategic, some initiative, action you put a plan there, okay, we'll try to largely build on research excellence, or you try to, like, a lot of, because SEGi University is also like has achieved QS rankings for research excellence. So how is it? Is it a strategic focus there, or how do you look at it?
Well, there are two different, if I were to categorize it, there were two different strategies that we deploy. For the undergraduate students, they are different. For the postgraduate students, it's vastly different. For the undergraduate students, a lot of it is on the entire experience. But we also need to take cognizance of the fact that the way students learn now are so much different from the time I learned. Murli looks much younger than me, so from the time I learned, it's so
About
different.
the same.
We would willingly take a scolding here and there, and that's nothing. Stress is part and parcel of the whole thing. But the way students learn now, and they learn better when we teach them in a much fun way. So let me just share with you a little bit of SEGi's secret. So one of SEGi's secret was, I think 3 years ago, right in the midst of the pandemic, we realized that similar to our medical schools and our dental schools, our students would go to, for example, if you're a student studying medicine, would you go to a medical school if none of your lecturers have ever touched a patient? Would you go to a medical school if none of them were ever doctors before? The answer is probably no. But when we send students to business schools, we don't realize that a lot of the business lecturers may never have run a business at all because they are academics. They may have some experience, but not in running their own business. So 3 years ago, we said, this will never do for us because we want our students' outcomes to be vastly different. We want them to hit the road running. We don't want them to be only exposed at internship. So an immersive methodology needs to happen for our business schools. So we started that 3 years ago, and we've got industry leaders come into our classrooms, design our curriculum, assess the students, hear the students do pitching for business side by side with our academics. And it didn't start very well, let me be honest with you, because there's this transition period where students were not used to being assessed by industry leaders. And they were being held accountable. Deadline is a deadline. There's no negotiation for assignment due. Please, can I submit it next week? There's no more such things. The deadline is a deadline, even if you have to stay up all night. So such lessons I felt were important lessons. It builds character. It was not pleasant, but now the students have got a hang on it. They love those industry experience. So that's one thing that we distinguish ourselves. But having said that, every university is unique. And everyone has their own strengths. We wanted to do that for our undergraduate students. Some other universities, they do other things. I'm very sure they do, and they do it remarkably well. For postgraduate students, we have tied up with actually many universities, as I'm sure APU does as well. So for our medical school, for example, and we have a QS 5-star for our medicine programs, we have a tie-up with a lot of great research universities. Duke University is one of them. And we do a lot of research, and we have their staff come over here. We do a lot of things with them, publications, research, not just this one university that I mentioned, but about 200 over universities across the world. And that is a continuous process. At a strategic level, we know that even though we're a teaching and learning institution, but because we offer programs at postgraduate level, there is a need for that level of activity to happen for the research, the publications, and all that. We have moved away from a lot of conference since the pandemic, but the research activities still happen. We have excellent team of from the DVC of academic and research down to a whole lot of research committees and all, and they do great work around it. So that's where SEGi is.
I guess a few important points that you mentioned, right? The initiative that you've taken, even for the UG applicants, how important it is, right? To experience the real life, real time business situations while probably you are still going on with your course. A lot of times, students would have graduated unless they don't experience that real life scenario, they don't get a good hands on. So, the perfect time for that is to blend it with the academic learning so that once they graduate, they move out, they have the first hand experience only. Great. So, Dr. Murli, right, if you look at the last probably 1 decade, Malaysia has emerged as one of the South Asia's biggest and one of the most lucrative markets for higher education. So, what probably as per you, or how this shift has happened there, and probably what the current Malaysian education landscape looks like?
I think it looks very promising. And again, if you ask anyone to define why you say something is promising, I think the ranking speaks for itself. If you just take a look at the QS World Rankings again, so if I may use QS as an example, I think we have a lot of universities in Malaysia, easily 25 of them that are up there. I'm looking at both public and private, right? So from a global perspective, have we made our name? Yes. So in the past, were we there? No. But now, top 100, you have universities from Malaysia. Top 200, you have universities from Malaysia. The number, the pool gets bigger. So visibility-wise, it's there. So which means collectively, all of us, public and private, we are doing something that's right. Yeah. So it seems to be working well for us. That's an indicator. The other thing also, we got to juxtapose this vis-a-vis what's happening from a geopolitical environment in the world. We are living in this world called a VUCA world, and it's not a term that I came up with. Probably consultants use this all the time: volatile, uncertain, complex, and therefore very ambiguous, right? Which puts a lot of pressure to parents who are wanting to send kids abroad. So in the past, if you look at people from Middle East, if you look at people from, say, Eastern Asia, the hot buttons typically would be Europe, America, Australia, New Zealand. Yeah. um, Australia, Europe, UK especially, and US would be highly sought after destinations. So today people are saying, look, affordability is no longer there yet. I want high quality education, and they are looking towards Malaysia as an avenue, as an alternative, because we have institutions such as SEGi, such as us, that's offering that quality that you want. So in other words, if I'm a parent myself, why is there a need for me to send my kids abroad if I cannot afford it, number one? And more importantly, if I can get similar or at par infrastructure, at par quality and talent in Malaysia. So I think this shift is happening not only for local students, but also international students that who were not looking at Malaysia as a viable option, right? So again, in APU, we have students from 132 countries, 132 nationalities are represented here, which is why we come out very strong in terms of our internationalization and international student numbers. Yeah, basically, it's for that simple reason: world-class infrastructure, highly affordable programs. Yeah, so naturally, I may not be able to get to US for a variety of reasons, but let's look at an alternative of getting a decent qualification from Malaysian institutes, and I think most of us are headed in that direction. Also, an increasing trend of why students are coming to us, there's as Stella correctly mentioned and very aptly pointed out, the collaborations that we foster with other institutions around the world that offers multiple pathways. You're looking at 1+3, 2+2 options, semester abroad options. So be it in a short term, mid-term, or longer term options, it's available for students both international and Malaysia to sort of explore this opportunity as well. Again, pricing is a very important point to discuss at this point. So, and credit to the government as well. I think there's a lot of processes that were relatively slow in terms of visa applications and so on. A lot of streamlining has been done and is still being done to ensure that the process is ramped up, that we can get students in faster than we were used to. So there's a collective effort from government, from the regulatory authorities, and from private and public sector institutions to ensure that we are there and we position ourselves as a education hub in this region. And I think that works well for the economy as well for us.
Great, absolutely. So quality education, world-class infrastructure, considering in the affordability factor also and the distance.
Yeah.
All of together has coming together, and how people have, like, as it has alternative for otherwise student going to Australia or US or other markets. Right. So basically, Ms. Stella, Dr. Murli has mentioned unique aspects about Malaysian education landscape. So if you look at right, SEGi itself being a home to probably what around more than what 20,000 international students. How do you look at that this varies from other from those in the other regions, particularly from the competitive landscape?
Well, approaching this from the competitive landscape, I think Malaysia, as a country, is a very interesting country. It's very multicultural, very diverse. So international students don't really feel lost when they come. They find food that are familiar with them, and the people and the culture. Everyone is really friendly, and you don't find that you are isolated just because you look different or you sound different, and that's very important. For SEGi as an institution, we don't have 131 countries, but close. We have 91 countries. what this means for us is that not only do we welcome students and make it accessible for them, so we do offer scholarships to students for academic merit. It doesn't matter where they come from, whether they are Malaysian students or they're overseas students, and they do come in on certain merits. So we take them in, but that's the whole environment that is very important to them. So we have on-campus hostel, we have support systems that will help them. We have career centers, we have counseling departments, as I'm very sure APU has as well. So all that is extremely important. Accessibility to higher education has become increasingly important because the way students consume knowledge has greatly differed, right? So we do offer micro credentials, we do offer hybrid learning. So students who may want to go back for internships, students who may want to do certain parts of their program online in their home country, where is allowed, where there are no practical lessons, where there are no compulsory practical classes, then we are flexible in allowing that to happen. But of course, there are many regulations, many checkpoints to make sure that the students are not disadvantaged because of that. So we have engaged with technology, you'll be happy to hear that, to make sure that the entire learning experience is not compromised. The entire learning experience is in fact enriched. And we can do that through multiple ways. Just let me give you an example. We have a university partner, it's the University of Greenwich in the UK. So leveraging on technology, our students can get onto their online library and have access similar to a student on campus to a huge repertoire of resources that, the online books, the online journals, and everything is accessible to them. So it's such collaborations that give value to our students, to our staff, and the exchange that the students do online, because they do get to attend online classes with our partner universities. That's something rather priceless, I think.
Great. So you have touched upon a very amazing topic, diverse culture. You stressed, you talked about that largely, and that is something it's amazing. It's mind-boggling for me, for someone to see, right, how maybe it has become a melting pot of maybe from more than 100 countries students come together and studying together in one organization, right? So with that, maybe Dr. Murli, right, I would come to you with this question. So if you consider, even probably considering the such diverse need of probably APU's international community from probably more than 100 countries, how does university work to meet probably these prospective students' expectation and preferences in education? Is it a challenge, or maybe you have identified that's how it works, and you have
It,
maybe
it is
you have
it is
handled this, Lisa?
Yep, it is a challenge, but we try and look at things from a very practical perspective. So imagine that I'm assigned to another country on a short-term stint for, say, 3 years, right? And the country is Brazil. I don't speak the language, never been there, not sure what's it like. So when you land, the first thing that you're probably looking for is somebody who can communicate with you, and somebody who probably looks like you a bit, maybe has a bit more hair, uh, and can engage in that conversation and make you feel a lot at home. So from the time a student arrives at the airport, we try and ensure that through our student ambassadorship, so we place that nationality at the airport to welcome them. Yeah. So immediately they connect in terms of language. Immediately they look similar. They talk about a similar issue. They connect very fast, right? And so the way to do that is students empowering students to make the right decisions and settle them in nicely. So that is one strategy that we use. So is to allow students themselves to become the volunteers as ambassadors to settle other students in. So that's one. And second important thing that we always do is we allow the students from a very diverse background to mix and mingle in a variety of ways. Number one, as far as possible, we encourage them to be in nationalities in terms of their teams, right? From curriculum projects under a particular module, all the way up to organizing events that are much more in an informal setting. For example, we celebrated last year, and every year there's a highly anticipated event called International Cultural Night. It starts at 3 p.m. It goes all the way to 2 a.m. People are dancing, singing. There's a lot of food from different countries, and it's just so vibrant.
All cultures coming together.
Yeah, all coming together, and no one moves. So we are all there. Like last year, I sat through from 3 o'clock till 2 o'clock in the morning. I had to be reminded that, look, there's a family at home waiting. So it's so much fun. And so apart from the student
Did you get to try
ambassadorship,
as well?
yeah, we do. And then apart from the celebrating the different cultures, we also allow them to celebrate their national days. And they have their own parades, they have their own activities, they have their own nights. And if a community is fairly small, for example, last year we had this event which was called the Island Night. So students from different islands, Sri Lanka, Japan, think of islands, Samoa, Fiji. So they grouped together, they put up a 2.5 hour performance at night with island type food, right? And fashion show. And so this is one thing that is very important to us. And as long as students are happy and they are doing things that's sensible for their upliftment, either professionally or in an informal setting, building certain competencies that are not necessarily measured in a very tangible way, we allow that and we support that. And I think we will continue to do so to ensure that they feel at home. Some of them travel very far and they miss family, especially in the first 6 months. So we try and fill the gaps in as much as possible. That's something. And also on campus, we do assure that their health and safety is taken care of. We have an ambulance on campus. So when parents visit us, they say, "Oh, you have an ambulance on campus?" I say, "Yeah," just to ensure that your children are safe. If we need to rush them to hospitals, we do as in-house clinic. And this is very important to us. As Stella mentioned early on, that environment that makes them feel comfortable is so important. Yeah.
I mean, so amazing. So largely we talked about, right, diverse. When we talk about handling diverse cultures, it's largely about how we are able to settle them in, how we're able to personalize their experience, so that if somebody is going altogether a different location, they get time to settle in and they get some personalized experience. Okay, they're able to connect. So amazing to know that, probably, sir. And yes, I'll be booking my ticket next time for sure for the International Cultural Night. I am excited to
Hey,
get to
you're
see.
welcome. You're welcome.
I'm sure
Stella is
it would
welcome
be a
as well.
different experience, altogether a different level. So,
Sure.
Miss Stella, with you probably with the kind of like vast experience of more than 30 years you have, right? And probably you are being someone who has been at the helm of conceptualizing, scaling processes, teams, and organizations. You definitely seem to have some magic formula. Under your leadership, how has SEGi University evolved to meet changing demands of this higher education globally, and particularly in Southeast Asia? Anything probably you would like to share, right? You have implemented, or what has led to SEGi University maybe handling such dynamic landscape?
If I hear you correctly, you're asking how did we grow to such scale? Is that it?
Yeah, I am more keen to know, any, do you have any magic formula behind that, or what is it?
I wouldn't call it a magic formula, but it is a persistent and staying true, is really persistence. It's really staying true to what we want our ultimate outcome to be. Yes, we are private institutions, and yes, sustainability in a financial sense is important to us because that is what fuels further growth, right? We need to reinvest back to the institutions and to make sure that we employ better people all the time. We get more activities around student recruitment. We invest back into a student's learning experience. So all that require very solid financial backing.
So I would
Did
like
that
also, sorry, I'm interrupting you. I would like you, for the larger audience, to also stress upon, since this is a very dynamic space, right? Higher education is a very dynamic industry, and how it has been evolving consistently. So how this higher education space has evolved globally, particularly Southeast Asia. So how have you been able to navigate through these waters?
Yes, so I was going to come to that.
Yeah.
So to really plan for growth, it is not just one magic formula. It is really a complex situation where you need to consider multiple variables, right? So it's a multivariate formula that you look at. You have to look at, first thing is, are we teaching the students right thing? Are we relevant? So who decides on who and how are we relevant? So this is a engagement with the stakeholders that we find, from the staff that we have, the management that we have, the students, parents, if they are involved in that, and we're talking about maybe lower levels, younger students, and then we talk about employers, and we talk about other universities that we benchmark our curriculum to. So there's so much that is going on. And then we talk about the changing demands of students. And if you have read newspaper reports, you have read online reports, and more students are not going to universities anymore, and they rather leave high school and go straight out to the workplace. And there are multiple reasons for that. We will not go to that, not today, but there is an ongoing discussion that are universities even relevant anymore? Do people need to go to university to have a remarkable career? I come from the belief that yes, you do need. There is only so much that you can gain from exposure and experience. I strongly believe that to really succeed, an individual needs to have the 3 E's. The 3 E's being education, experience, and exposure. And that's how we put everything together. You know what experience is, you know what education is. Exposure is when you do case studies, when you listen to stories, you reflect on that. So you learn from somebody's experience, not necessarily you going through that fire. And so I always say exposure, you know what? That's the best way of learning, because you learn without the pain. But if you reflect enough, there's a lot of lessons in that space. So coming back to your question, how do we strategize? How do we go? Every program that we do is different. So our strategies for dentistry, for medicine, that's different. That's a highly professional program. It needs multiple recognition, not only locally in Malaysia, but we seek for medical council recognition from all over the world. That's where a curriculum needs to cater to many different needs. We don't only have international students, we also have international faculty members. So that lends to the richness in our diversity as well. We have planned our programs at multiple levels to be competitive, to draw the attention of different needs of our students. So we have from foundation and certificate level, and that is in MQF level, we call it level 3. So these are maybe O level with minimum qualification entry. And then we have the diplomas, we have the degrees, we have a postgraduate program, so masters and PhD and all that. So at many different levels, they each teach different skill sets, and they nurture students for different callings in life, if you call it that way. But everybody have their space, and if they so wish, they could advance to a higher level. But they're highly employable at whatever level that they choose to exit. So at those levels, students need to know that I have received the education that I signed up for. I have received enough to now go out and make it on my own in the real world. And if I so choose, I can come back again at any time and continue my education.
Wow, absolutely amazing. So, just to touch base upon, for the audience, there's no magic formula. It's not the overnight
A lot of
success.
hard work.
A lot of hard work, and it's a gradual process which happened with a series of steps, with every step starting from grassroots level, not just ensuring building checks and processes just for the applicant, but also for the teams, also for the employees, and that eventually translates to the top level, and how eventually gradually it leads to build such an ecosystem. So it's basically an entire ecosystem building. Great.
Yes. Yes.
Amazing.
Right. Absolutely.
So probably with this, I'll reach out to you, Dr. Murli. With the You have an extensive experience in the education space. I was going through your profile. I was tired. The kind of list it went on, and I thought, I'll just wrap and I'll just connect with you to understand your experience, your journey. I was inspired by that. With that extensive experience in the education space and leading a university now that attracts a huge number of international students, and ranked one of the leading university in Malaysia, one of the top leading in the world as well. How do you maybe handle the expectation or the strategies or practice about engaging the students at such a vast level and coming from different geographies? So, any best practices or anything that you would like to share around such engagement strategies for the enrollment funnel at APU?
So are we referring to before they come in or once they're already in the program? What engagement level are we talking about?
How it's like, even how do you attract these students? How do you engage them
Okay.
to make sure that they are going through the journey, they're able to enroll, get a seamless enrollment
Okay.
experience? How does that enrollment funnel complete engage
Right.
is on with this?
There are a couple of ways that we do this. Again, I like to quote Stella. There's no magic formula, but it's a lot of hard work. And I think thanks to a very dedicated marketing team that we actually have, who have networks throughout the world, and that deeper connections that they've built in the different countries is what is a starting point. So when we say we have different partner networks, these are people who are on the ground who will actually speak to potential students or potential applicants. Like, it's not rocket science. There might be a trade event, there might be an education event in, say, Uzbekistan or in Middle East. So we ensure that our representatives are there and they're representing us and they are promoting the university in a correct manner. They're promoting Malaysia in a right tone. That's one. Locally, we do a lot of work with embassies, the various embassies that are in Malaysia, and we have very good relationships with the various embassies that we work with. So in essence, the people in the embassy know who we are, they know what we stand for, and they know the sort of environment that potentially their students could actually come and experience as well. So working with embassies at the local front, bringing them part of our activities here as part of our community, we find that actually pays very well in terms of letting them quickly understand who we are, what we do, what we stand for. Yeah. So international networks is one. And then working with embassies here, making them part of our family, the extended family that we have, as a very important stakeholder for us. And the third thing is the role of the academic collaboration that we have. Yeah. So the collaboration that we foster whenever we sign an MOU, we do it carefully. It's not for the sake of adding another MOU on the board or on the shelf where the shelves are getting full with gifts and so on. It's not that. It's about, we clearly articulate what we hope to achieve with each partner that we are working with. And the reputation of that partner also is very meaningful, because which means if I'm partnering a high-ranked university from abroad, there is naturally media coverage for that. And then suddenly people say, oh, okay, this is APU, they are working with our universities, this is Malaysia. It could be an option for my child, right, one day. So all these simultaneous approaches that we orchestrate to ensure that the brand name is out there, the brand presence is out there. And as much as, again, I go back to the ranking, as much as there's no empirical evidence to say that the higher your ranking is, the more the number of students will actually be coming into you from the international world. There's some proxy studies for that, but you can't put $100 and say, this is what I'm going to invest, and that will be a return in terms of ranking versus student. There's no one size fit all formula for that. But the ranking does put your brand on that shelf, yeah, amidst others who are out there to say, okay, who are these guys? Let's explore discussions with them, be it at the student level, at the parent level, or an institutional level. So a couple of things, yeah. So working with networks and partners throughout the world, making sure that they are there in local events, local communities, and making sure that we connect with the embassies on the ground here to ensure that things are done well, and making sure that the brand name is there out in whatever way possible. Yeah. So a lot of hard work, a tremendous amount of hard work in that sense.
Great. So, Dr. Murli, we touched upon largely the pre-enrollment part, the post-enrollment part, but if I specifically talk about the enrollment phase, right, wherein the applicants are ongoing, the application part, they are still inquiring. Any approach problem that APU applies over there, or how do you ensure that engagement is we are able to reach out to our end user audience and assist them in their enrollment funnel? Because
Are you
assuming
are you
this,
gathering data of our enrollment strategies?
so,
I
so,
guess it's like,
I
I
think
mean,
it is.
yeah, to be very
so
crude, I mean, how would you, if you're falling in love with someone, right? How do you court that person? You got to continuously engage with that person physically. You got to continuously engage with the person in social media. I'm following that person, not stalking, but with permission. I'm following you on LinkedIn. I'm following you on. So you need to do all of that, right? So there's a multi-channel sort of approach of engagement. So it's not, okay, I give you a call and drop it there. This is age-old marketing. So there's no one answer that would probably answer that question that you would put forth. It's a continuous journey. It's a continuous cycle. And you got to look at the different channel representatives who are reaching out to a potential applicant, yeah, to ensure that from the funnel becomes very narrow and ultimately there's conversion. So there's no one direct formula for that as well. I think it's effort from a lot of people. And sometimes the very presence of our ambassadors, our faculty, they give a talk somewhere at an event in an overseas country, has generated to someone joining us was, oh, I met your staff and they did an excellent presentation. I was so inspired to this program, to do this program at APU. So it works that way, right? And that person would have been talking at a different forum, not aimed at a marketing event. So that works as well. Another example is my son, who had no clue what he wanted to do, what he wanted to do in life, goes and watch Oppenheimer, and today he wants to be a physicist, right? In PhD in physics. So again, people are inspired with different things. So as long as the different stakeholders, the different channels of communication that we are with, they continuously inspire the market out there, some ripple effect will actually occur. Yeah. I hope I've answered your question in a long-winded way, but I don't have a particular step one,
so
step two, step three conversion strategy, right?
but you
It
touched
works in
upon a
different
very
ways.
important point there, Dr. Murli. I guess that is fundamental and a core, right, for any international university. It's not just what probably I'll just try to touch base upon the pointer that you covered. So Dr. Murli talked about it's not about identifying a one channel. It's about ensuring that you are able to reach out to an applicant across all the mediums, having
Yep.
a larger comprehensive engagement strategy. And there's no again there are that one probably focused study that doesn't work. It's about ensuring we are able to reach out to students across all the mediums. It's about consistently maintaining that engagement and ensuring there's no gap, irrespective of now that student is coming from whatever geography or whatever medium. For instance, let's assume as a student, I might probably not open my email, but I'll be available on online Google or I'll be there on maybe WhatsApp. So it's about ensuring that you have a comprehensive engagement strategy in place and are able to tap and reach out to your audience there.
I mean, two words to sum that up would be customer service during the funneling process, right? So that has to be on top. Customer service needs to be there.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, bang on, sir. Uh, so, so Ms. Stella, allow when we talked about initially the QS rankings. We covered research. We talked about research. Where again a very important QS ranking when we talk about hallmark of excellence. When we even with universities like APU and with SEGi University, how if you have to elaborate on this particular aspect, how has the university been particularly effective in enhancing the student experience, and how does this reflect in the rankings, hallmark of excellence when we talk about this particular ranking?
I think the entire student experience is reflected in some way or the other because we are really talking about how we impact the students' learning, right? So it is not something that we do. If we think about student experience as organizing just activities, that's not the entire thing. It's a student experience in various touch points, right? From the time they inquire about a course, from the time like what Dr. Murli says, from the time they do it. So that's customer service. When they're in the classrooms, the knowledge of the lecturers, the wealth of his or her experience and knowledge that he brings or he or she brings into the classroom, that's really important. So who we get into our team, that's not rocket science. It's how we purposefully know what we want and how we're going to get it. But we know that everything that we do, and because our students, so education is a strange industry because our products, is our student, right? We take them in its raw form, and by the time they go through that process and the system, I would have hoped that they would emerge as a completely new person with different ideas and different ambitions and different inspirations to what they want to do. And it's not just measured in how much money I would earn, but how much more they are fulfilling their own purpose in life. And I think that's really important. That's something I want to ensure that if I could, every student must come up with a fresh purpose in life, very different from the time they entered the university cycle, that whole process. So yes, everything that we do. So we're talking about facilities that would enhance their learning. We're talking about the student mix. Would they have the right mix? Would they challenge their thinking? And so we need to build a diverse community, because we don't learn if we keep having the same group of friends who think like us, who talk like us. And so there's not going to be any growth. So in everything that we do, it is with a purpose for the outcome, what we want to achieve, what attributes of these graduates that we really believe in, that we really value, and then we put in the expenses and the investments to make sure that that whole journey, that whole ecosystem is supported.
Thank you so much for stressing upon that, touching those pointers. Meanwhile, we have got some questions. I would request audience, please, anything is there, please put in the Q&A section. We will take these questions in a while. Once we cover, before wrapping up, we'll try to answer these questions with our panelists as well once. So, Dr. Murli, when we talk about probably APU has always been looked upon as one of the Malaysia's premier digital tech university. And this question, I'm sure a lot of our audience would be keen to know, and excites the larger audience as well. When we talk about digital premier technological university, tech university, how does APU leverage technology to not just attract, engage, and enroll, but also improve the learning experience?
Yeah, I think Stella somewhat covered that as well, as she correctly pointed out, at every aspect of the student's journey and life cycle in the university, from enrollment to graduation, I think we try and embed that with different systems and technologies to ensure it's very conducive for them, right? So for example, apps that centralizes whatever a student needs to know in their journey. Where's my classroom? What are sales out there in terms of food that I can purchase? How do I live in a cashless sort of environment? And then from a teaching and learning perspective, is it seamless? Are there hybrid opportunities? Are my assessments managed in the online world? And the list goes on and on. So you really got to curate this is where design thinking might actually apply. So positioning ourselves, being very empathetic, that's the fourth E, probably. Stella, to add to Stella, she talked about three. I think empathy is something that we're trying to inculcate in our students as well, which is to really understand the worldview from somebody else's mind in terms of what challenges that they are facing. So we empathize with our students in terms of what are possible issues or challenges that they might have. And in that context, being a technology-driven university, how do we use technology as a solution to address these pain points that they might have in their journey? So if we do that well, I think it's done, right? But we need to continuously improve. But one key aspect of that is we look at, there are different pillars, there are 5 pillars to support the customer journey or the student journey in terms of making sure technology is embedded in their life. One of the pivotal journey is the teaching and learning experience, right? So again, Stella talked about how are we using the best technology to ensure that learning becomes very seamless for students. So and I always tell our faculty members, how would you teach differently and how would you use technology, even like generative AI today, to generate content that is so meaningful to the student, right? How are we leveraging on this? Or are we just same old PowerPoint slides after slides after slides? I think students, are we challenging the students' ability to read? Don't you think that they can read slides? And if we are parroting the slides, why are we teaching that? Right? So how do we engage better using technology? One, or even with content, how are we flipping this whole learning approach? I think that is so important. And this is where AI now comes in to help lecturers curate content in a much more stylish manner, in a much more simplified manner, in a much more engaging manner for students, right? So we got to think about that. The other one is also, how do we embed technology into assessment processes? Grading, for example, one of the nightmare for many lecturers is actually, I used to teach a lot, but now with the leadership position, I still teach, but I do more corporate training. So I don't get involved in teaching mass classes. I do guest lectures, but when I was teaching 400-500 students at one point, marking is a nightmare. And I'm sure Stella will agree. Many staff would come to us and say, marking is a nightmare. So we're saying, come on, guys, rubrics now can be interpreted by generative AI. Keyword search will mark an online paper in about, a minute, to say that, look, the student deserves a grade B for this or grade A, because there's a 80% similarity with the rubrics in terms of what I've been trained. So let's use machine learning, for example, to sort of automate the marking process. So these are different ways in which we got to ensure, not only for student, but also for faculty. Why? If the faculty is happy, students are happy. If faculty are grumpy because I've got tons amount of work to do and I'm not automating that, that frustrations could translate into students' experience. Yeah. So we got to ensure that how we manage the staff's happiness index, not only the H index for research, but the H index for happiness, to ensure that is translated into more powerful content that they're delivering in class. So to answer your question, we try and ensure to the best of our ability, establishing different units, Center for Technology and Innovation, for example. We have a digital learning hub to help students and staff use technology in a much more productive way and make life and learning more fun.
Amazing, so true. And it's very important, right, as you highlighted, right? It's also not just about, it's important at our university at our end, how that adoption is happening in, firstly with us as an employees, our organization faculties, how they're adapting, so that eventually is reflected upon the learners also, the students also. Great, sir. So, Miss Stella, with that, right, if you could maybe shed some light on that, right, from SEGi University point of view, how the technology is leveraged at SEGi University probably to target students at each stage of the recruitment funnel.
So as far as technology is concerned, I think we have used almost every end of that spectrum. So from enrollments, is all online, is CRM powered and enrollment, up to teaching and learning, a lot online, a lot with tools and technology that assists with that. Down to even a blockchain certification of their certificates at the end. So there are different ways in which we have leveraged on technology, and I think it's just a wonderful thing. So here we know that the next generation, current generation actually of students, they are digital natives, right? Maybe different from those at my age, but they are real digital natives, and that's how they learn best. And just to give you one example on how we leverage on that, was that in every one of our campus we have an esports lab, and we did this because we know that students were going to play games anyway. So why don't we just build a safe space for them to do it. And then we watch how the students fare academically. And we realize that if you encourage them to participate in healthy esports, right, they learn things that they never thought they would learn. They learn strategies, they learn research, because there they are, sneakily watching a YouTube video of how to play that game better. They are communicating, so they have learned how to communicate with total strangers and people they don't know. And teamwork, because somebody has to die in order for another person to live on. So they negotiate, they strategize, and they learn all this under very high stress, high pressure environment, because you know that you're in it as a team and you need to win that tournament. So I find that students actually learn a lot more than they give themselves credit for, and that they have a lot more grit because they will stay in the game no matter what. That may not happen when they are studying and they may give up, but they learn then that actually I have the tenacity to stay on if I wanted to. And so that what drives that is passion. So they have that passion for gaming. They could transition that passion or build the same fire for what they're studying in, and later on with what their career leads them into. So that's one example of leveraging technology to teach students what they are actually capable of.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you for sharing those insights. Before we move on to the final question, I would like to take a few questions that we have received from our audience. I would request panelists, please, you can take these questions. So the first question that we have received is, what advice would you give other universities looking to grow their enrollments in Malaysia? So I would request either Dr. Murli or Ms. Stella, if any one of you can take this up. The question is, I'll repeat, what advice would you give other universities looking to grow their enrollments in Malaysia?
Are you good people?
I think get the basics right, lah. What do you mean basics right? The basics right, it's like eating in a restaurant. What makes a restaurant grow? It's good food, good service, and a nice environment to be in. How do we translate to higher learning? I think good food means good content, good curriculum, which is really making sure that they're really marketable. And it's very painful, yeah. It's very painful for us. I don't think we're doing justice as educationists or as educators if we are taking in students and teaching courses that are irrelevant to the industry. And parents are struggling to pay the fees. I think we got to do justice to society. And it's a really important role for people like Stella and me to ensure that the team that we work with doing that, get the basics right, then things will fall into place.
Sure. Thank you so much. I don't think so it could have been put in a better way. The next question that we have received is, I would request Ms. Stella if you can take it up. We will like also take Dr. Murli's views on that. What role what role does internationalization play in your university's overall strategy? So the question is, what role does internationalization play in your university's overall strategy?
Okay, I'll go first. I think internationalization is not an option. It needs to be embedded into every fiber of that university. We can't isolate ourselves and say we are close. We just want our own citizens and we only want to deliver in a language that only we understand. I think that is rather outdated and is not how we want our students to be. It is a global world, whether we like it or not. Our students are going to go to countries that they were not born in. They are going to want to explore. So having internationalization, whether you export your programs overseas or you bring students overseas into your campus, that is the breeding ground for acceptance and knowing that there are people that are not brought up the same way as I am. They have different beliefs, they have different likes, they have different customs. they give feedback differently and they behave differently. We have students from non-Malaysian students who are maybe a bit more bold in giving feedback, and they have no qualms about telling a lecturer, I don't like you. But maybe not all Asians, and all Asians are probably a bit more reserved. So knowing that difference, knowing to how to navigate it in a campus level, I think that's a very safe space for learning. And the lecturers are there, our counselors are there to help them navigate that differences. And I think that is really strong points. Internationalization, I say it again, is not an option. It really needs to happen. Really, please.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I guess that has been answered. Dr. Murli, if you have anything, if you would want to add to that, I guess, or we can mark as answered.
No, I just want to add one line. I think we got to quote Hong Kong Shanghai Bank when they call themselves the global local bank. I think all universities in Malaysia should position themselves as a global local institution of higher education. Local but connected
Absolutely.
globally. It's not an option. Totally agree with Stella.
Absolutely. Sure. Thank you so much. I hope that has been answered. Another question that we have received from Ms. Madit. The question is, which vertical of the education sector in Malaysia has the highest potential for scaling?
Highest potential for skilling or scaling?
Can I repeat? The question is, which vertical of the education sector in Malaysia has the highest potential for scaling? I guess a lot of investor have joined us, our session also. So, which vertical has the of the education sector in Malaysia has the highest potential for scaling, growth potential? Which vertical has
Growth
the
potential.
growth potential? So, I guess
It
this we have
depends.
already covered during our
Depends
discussion.
who you ask.
Mr. Mudit,
Are the
yeah,
verticals, verticals, you mean the different departments or the different
yeah.
organizations, or do you mean the different faculties?
I'll try to think some, Mr. Mudit, basically based on the discussions right from Dr. Murli and Ms. Stella. It was very evident, right, when we talked about how the landscape is largely evolving and how it's growing. But when we talk about verticals, I'm assuming we're talking about higher ed tech companies. So we touched base upon higher ed, how the higher education is at a very massively growing, evolving, how it has evolved over last 1 decade. So Ms. Stella and Dr. Mulya have already covered that aspect. So I hope that would have answered your question. Thank you so much. So with that, we'll move to the final question before we wrap up this discussion. I would come to you, Dr. Mulli, for that. Scaling a university like APU must take a lot of efforts, sir. So if you could tell us how this growth journey has been under your leadership and where do you see APU in the next 5 to 10 years, sir?
It's a very tough question for 7 o'clock at night. Well, I think it's not my leadership. I think it's the collective leadership of the leadership team plus the next level and the next level and so on. And so it's teamwork. And without the teamwork, I don't think it's possible to scale. And as I mentioned, it's very important to ensure that the content that we deliver, the product, the educational content that we design and deliver to students, it must make sense. And how it makes sense is a measure of, again, back to employability, back to earning a decent wage out there, back to being relevant in the industry, right? So I think it's there. And for that, it's a gigantic team effort, right down to the person who is using a particular content in a particular class, how that fits to the overall strategic direction of the organization is so important. Yeah, it's so important. Where do we see ourselves 3 to 5 years from now? We hope to become bigger and we hope to be known as the premier institute that generates high quality talent for Malaysia in the ICT space and beyond.
Great, sir. So, Ms. Stella, uh, even coming to you for that, looking forward, how does SEGi University plan to continue probably paving the way for future generations and contribute to this ever evolving landscape in Malaysia?
we're definitely going to be here for a very long time. Having been here in this space for so long, the industry will definitely evolve as it has. During the years of the pandemic, it's not by choice, right? Overnight, we converted really from a brick and mortar university to a lot of online. So lecturers, staff, support staff, everybody was just forced to re-examine every process and convert them online and to make everything accessible to the students and no longer requiring that face-to-face. What's our strategy is for the future is to ensure that we are preparing the students for the future that they might not know. So not only meeting the industry's needs at the moment, but to preempt them, if you will, and to know that what are the skills, what are the attributes that will withstand the test of time. And then we build upon that. If you're talking about programs that will stay on, would for example, IT programs, would they remain the same? Definitely it won't. So everything would evolve as it is, but listening to what the industry needs, knowing what might happen in the future, we have to do all that areas research in a different way.
Absolutely. Sure. Wow. Thank you so much, Ms. Stella. Thank you so much, Dr. Murli. If I have to put it, probably what an hour of learning it has been. If I have to just maybe conclude it, right? We started off probably with how the landscape has evolved over a period of last 10 years. We touched base upon how critical it is to focus on the fundamentals, how those small initiatives, those small steps eventually to a larger success and building an ecosystem around that. We touch upon how with the diverse culture, how universities like APU, how universities like SEGi University are able to meet those learners' expectation, are able to enhance complete student experience and personalize it. And we talked about this Stella covered strategy. We talked about 3E strategy, and which was further enhanced by Dr. Murli Raman. We talked about education, experience, and exposure, and how empathy tops that and adds a tinge to all of these E's. So thank you so much, Ms. Stella, for your time and patience. Thank you so much, Dr. Murli, again for your time, patience. It was a pleasure hearing from you all. I'm amazed. I'm sure the audience also would have a lot of their own key takeaways from this session. Well, with this, we conclude our session. Thank you so much to all the audience for joining in this session. And again, a thanks to all our esteemed panelists, Dr. Murli Raman and Ms. Stella, for sharing your deep insights, experience, and knowledge with our audience. It was a pleasure hosting you on the Illuminate by Meritto webinar series. We look forward to having you soon in many more such upcoming sessions. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thanks, Stella. Take care. I'll see you soon.
Thank you. See you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Good
Naman.
night.
Good night.
Pleasure.
Good night.